What if the oldest mummies on Earth weren't Egyptian at all? Imagine hunter-gatherers 14,000 years ago gently folding their dead into a tight crouch and setting them above a low, smoky fire, drying, not burning, so the body could endure. Hidden in caves across South China, northern Vietnam, and Sumatra, bones still whisper that story. Faint charring, microscopic heat scars, and a ritual built on devotion rather than monuments. This single clue rewrites the timeline and challenges everything we think we know about mummification. If that grabbed you, subscribe for more hidden prehistory. Today, we're heading into the caves and rock shelters of South China, northern Vietnam, and Sumatra. Beneath layers of time lies a forgotten technique, smoke drying the dead, possibly as far back as 14,000 years. We'll unpack why some skeletons were buried in extreme crouched poses, how subtle traces of low heat and smoke still linger in bone, and what this reveals about love, grief, and belief among hunter-gatherers. We'll set these Asian finds against famous mummies from Chile and Egypt, spotlight the forensic tools, X-ray diffraction and FTIR, that cracked the case, and draw a timeline that flips the textbook story. Stay to the end for a 20-second recap and our biggest open question. Archaeologists kept finding the same pattern across South China, northern Vietnam, and Sumatra. Bodies folded into extreme crouched poses, knees jammed under the chest, arms tucked tight. At first glance, it looked cultural until the anatomy didn't add up. Some joints were bent beyond what ligaments allow in a fresh corpse. In several graves, bones at the elbows, the front of the skull, and the lower legs were darkened, even lightly charred, while surrounding bone remained pale. These burials appear in caves, rock shelters, and shell middens, places where humidity should erase soft tissue fast. Yet the folding suggests most flesh was already gone or dried when the bodies were finally interred. Across 54 burials at 11 sites, the same puzzle repeats. Something happened between death and burial, some process that dried, tightened, and transformed the body before it ever touched the ground. To test the idea, the team moved from trowels to lab benches. X-ray diffraction, XRD, probed the bone's mineral lattice. The diffraction patterns revealed microstructural changes consistent with heating, signals you don't get from simple staining or surface scorching. Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, FTIR, added a second line of proof, picking up a signature of prolonged low-temperature exposure in roughly 84% of the samples. Just as important was what they did not find, the hallmarks of cremation. High, rapid heat typically whitens, warps, and uniformly calcines bone. Here, most skeletons showed little or no visible burning, and where charring did appear, it clustered on the elbows, the front of the skull, and the lower legs. Spots with thinner muscle and fat that heat faster. Taken together, the data point to warmth and smoke that dried rather than flames that consumed. Bodies were likely arranged and gently heated over long periods before burial, explaining the extreme folding and the absence of most soft tissue when they finally reached the grave. Imagine a vigil, not a bonfire. The body is first prepared and tightly arranged into a deep crouch, knees drawn up, arms folded in, spine flexed. This compact pose isn't just symbolic. As tissues dry, tendons and skin contract, locking the posture in place. The deceased is then positioned above a small, steady fire that gives smoke and low heat, not flames. Over long stretches, tended day after day, the warmth drives out moisture, while smoke passes around the limbs and torso. Because muscle and fat are thinner on the shins, elbows, and forehead, these areas heat first, explaining the localized darkening seen on some bones. Crucially, temperatures stay low enough to avoid cremation. The goal is desiccation, not destruction. As soft tissue recedes, only dried skin may remain, and internal volume shrinks, allowing an even tighter fold. When the body is fully smoke-dried, it's moved, carefully, to its final resting place, a pit within a hut, a cave floor, or a rock shelter. Ethnographic parallels suggest this watchful process can last months, demanding constant attention and profound devotion. Ethnographic records from Papua New Guinea describe smoke drying the deceased above a low, steady fire, watched over for weeks to months. The aim is preservation, not burning, slow desiccation, periodic repositioning, and careful tending so heat and smoke circulate around limbs and torso. Postures can be compact, sometimes crouched, echoing the archaeological pattern. Historical accounts from parts of indigenous Australia also mention smoke drying as a funerary treatment, reinforcing that this technique is culturally coherent and technically feasible in humid climates. Similarities don't prove a direct lineage from deep prehistory, but they provide a living analog. Low heat, long duration, and communal vigilance can produce a preserved body without the telltale signatures of cremation. Until recently, textbooks dated the earliest deliberate mummification to the Chinchorro of northern Chile, approximately 7,000 years ago, and to ancient Egypt, approximately 4,500 years ago. The Southeast Asian evidence pushes that horizon far earlier. The oldest signal in this dataset, a forearm from northern Vietnam, shows low heat alteration consistent with smoke drying around 14,000 years ago, with most comparable burials clustering between 12,000 and 4,000 years. If accurate, that means hunter-gatherers, not states or early farmers, were already preserving bodies in some of the world's most humid environments. The key takeaway isn't a contest, but chronology. The oldest known evidence currently comes from Asia, and multiple regions likely invented preservation independently. Practical implication? We can't treat mummification as a late Nile-centric innovation. It appears as a much older, broader human response to grief, memory, and the desire to keep loved ones close. Smoke drying isn't just a technique. It's a social vow. Keeping a low fire alive for weeks or months demands shifts of caregivers, fuel gatherers, and ritual specialists, an entire community organized around one person's passage. The crouched pose likely worked on two levels: practical, a compact form that dries and holds, and symbolic, containment, return to womb, or readiness for a next stage. Final placement in huts, caves, or rock shelters brings the dead into everyday or protective spaces, not far off necropolises, proximity that speaks to remembrance rather than removal. In humid tropics, smoke becomes both tool and incense, a practical desiccant and a medium for transformation. The message beneath the method is intimate and enduring, to remain together, materially and spiritually, even after breath has left the body. Did smoke drying arise multiple times, or reflect a shared ancestral tradition that spread with migrations into Asia? How long were bodies displayed before burial? And was seasonality, dry versus wet, a factor? Which fuels and structures, hearths, racks, huts, produce the bone signatures we see? Can residue chemistry, collagen damage patterns, and microchar identify smoke sources reliably? How much did tropical taphonomy erase earlier examples? Finally, how do we test these ideas ethically, combining experiments, cave microclimates, and descendant community guidance without disturbing fragile remains? Across caves in South China, northern Vietnam, and Sumatra, archaeologists found crouched burials with localized charring. Lab tests, XRD-FTIR show prolonged low heat, evidence of smoke drying up to 14,000 years ago. This predates Chinchorro and Egypt, implying hunter-gatherers preserved the dead in humid tropics. Technique: low heat plus smoke plus months of care. Meaning: memory, community, devotion. Blew your mind? Subscribe for more hidden prehistory and hit the bell. Comment: Asia was first, so I know you made it. Share with a friend who loves archaeology, and I will see you in the next video.